I'm Thelma D. Jones, the proud founder of the Thelma D. Jones Breast Cancer Fund. Welcome to our New Year's celebration and 2025 kickoff support group meeting. I am so thrilled to see you here as we reflect on a new year and our achievements and look forward to our goals for the year. I'd like to just share a few highlights about where we're going and what we've accomplished over the year. First, the mission of the Thelma D. Jones Breast Cancer Fund is to help to reduce the incidence and mortality rates of breast cancer. We do this through outreach, support, and education to help to reduce the incidence and mortality rates of this insidious disease. Our vision is to save lives and help achieve a world community free of breast cancer. And one of the ways that we do this is through our signature program of our monthly support group, which we are having now. In terms of some of the highlights of the year, I will be brief on this because we will be sending out a report of our accomplishments and goals for next year before the end of January. But one of the things that I'm very proud about is in last September, we set a goal to raise $20,000 for my 72nd birthday. Now, I know I don't quite look 72, but you know, looks are deceiving. I probably look 62. Anyway, that goal was $20,000, and I am so pleased that we not only achieved that goal, but we exceeded it by several $1,000s. And if you're now feeling a bit disappointed that you missed out on making a contribution, well, you know, we can bend the rule a little bit and we can still add your name, but you may be in a different category, but that's okay. You'll be on the website from the time your name is added forever, because we will not take that down. That's an inspiration. The other accomplishment was that we have two new partners. One is Legacy of Hope, whose mission is basically to help to raise funds to support African American organizations that, such as the Thelma D. Jones Breast Cancer Fund. The lady, Niani Booker, who is the founder of the organization, is from a family of a history of breast cancer. And this is her way of wanting to give back and to help to change the paradigm shift around breast health. Our other partner is Thompson Restaurants. Thompson's Restaurant, as some of you may know, is the largest African-American owned food service or restaurant, I should say, in the country. And Thompson Restaurants owns several restaurants here in the area on the Southwest waterfront and around in Virginia. And the one organization or the restaurant that I have a special affinity to, all of them are great, but the one I have a special affinity to is Headquarter Prime, which is located at Buzzard Point. Not only did they embrace the Thelma D. Jones Breast Cancer Fund, they donated portions of their proceeds throughout the month of October. And get this, they had menus that had my name and logo on it. And I want to let you in on the little secret. Now, please don't think I broke one of the 10 commandments, which says, thou shalt not steal. But I was just so impressed of seeing my name and logo on this restaurant menu. I borrowed one. And if someone saw me borrowing it, because you know they have cameras everywhere, I figured if they said anything, I was going to take it back and just tell them, oh, I'm sorry, it was a mistake. I didn't mean to take it. So we are looking forward to our partnership with Imported Prime, and we've received at least 3 media attention as a result of that. The other great thing is that throughout the year, we held 12 support groups meetings, which is our signature program. Another great accomplishment is, and I will let one of our speakers, Sylvia Powers, talk more about this, is that I am now a co-chair of the steering committee to help plan the 2026 meeting for the national, for NBC, National Coalition of Breast Centers. So Sylvia, who is a longtime advocate, will tell us about that. And then one of the things that I am honored to be able to continue is representing my role as a 2019 recipient of the Andrea Roane Award. Andrea is on the line. So other than saying that Andrea is a class act, she's a force to reckon with. She is someone who spent 37 years in WSA 9, but many of us woke up to hearing her voice. One, because she's anchored several television shows with WSA 9, which I will let her tell you about. But for 25 years, she gave us a monthly reminder through Buddy Check 9. And to just kind of sum up who she is so that I won't steal too much of her thunder, is that a philosopher once said that only a life lived in the service of others is worth living. Andrea has certainly epitomized that quote. And as I've told her, I want to be just like Andrea when I grow up. So, and finally, or lastly, I want to thank our wonderful lineup of speakers. We have some of the most impressive speakers at our support group meeting that you ever want to see, if I must say so myself, and that we are spanning the globe. We have reached 6 different countries, some on a regular basis, such as Spain and Guatemala. They've probably been on the line at least 6 or 7 times this year. We've been in St. Lucia's, Barbados, Mexico, and I'm blinking on one. But we are globally, and we've reached at least 20 states in the United States, including California, Texas, where Sylvia is hailing from, Illinois, Michigan, Arizona, and the list can go on because, as I said, it's about 20 different US states. So I want to thank all of our distinguished guest speakers, starting with our MC, Deanna Darling, where we met. Well, I'll let you tell that. I won't steal your thunder. I am also grateful to have with us our guest speaker, Dr. Sarah Horton, and she can tell about how many times the two of us have said she was coming on to speak. And so I am so honored in 2025 that you are finally here. I am honored to have with us Reverend Dr. Beryl Dennis, who will do the blessing and who has done it countless times over the years. of course, Sherry Dinkinson Trott, who is ambassador and a TDJBCF ambassador and the co-founder of Happy on Wheels LLC. Sylvia Powers, I've mentioned, from here from Texas, and of course, last but not least, our dear friend Andrea Roane, who is in many ways being recognized and spotlighted today for the pioneering and trailblazing efforts that she has done around advocacy and given it a whole new dimension and taking it to a level that I know that we are benefiting from now and will benefit from in the future. So I will now turn it over to Deanna Darlington.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Thelma. I really appreciate that kind introduction. And I'd just like to say good evening to everyone. And thank you and the Thelma D. Jones Breast Cancer Fund New Year's celebration and the 2025 kickoff support group meeting. I am honored to be here. My name is Deanna Darlington. I am honored also to serve as your MC for this inspiring event. And as Thelma mentioned in her welcome, I have been a huge fan of Thelma Jones ever since I've been in the health equity and the cancer space. My background is in biotech and pharmaceuticals, and I had the great fortune to work for a biotech company. It was Onyx Pharmaceuticals. We were led by an amazing CEO of color, Dr. Tony Coles. And I approached Tony because I thought, you know, we give so much support and recognition to broader national cancer organizations. And I thought it was important to really put a spotlight, and this was back in 2010, 2011. I thought it was really important to put a spotlight on community. And I also thought it was important for industries like biotechs and pharmaceuticals to actually have a health equity summit where I thought we had a responsibility to community to really talk about the disparities that exist across a number of cancers. And so I was pleasantly surprised when I brought this to Tony's attention and thought, you know, health equity really needs to be at the top of our list and your priorities from a policy standpoint, just based upon our portfolio, our commitment to patients. And he actually said, okay, Deanna, you can do it. Move forward with that. And I did. I started about 15 years ago, a health equity summit that I hosted every year in Washington, D.C. And from the very first health equity summit that I hosted, I invited Thelma to be a part of that. And she showed up every year to that summit. So she just was always very dear to my heart and to the work that we were doing. You always saw her passion, her strong will, and her fight. And even beyond that health equity summit, I would see Thelma every year at the CBC, every year when they had their foundation meeting. If I was working with Lucille Campbell in Georgetown, I saw Thelma, whether it was an advisory panel. I always was made aware of the great work she was doing at a community level, the groceries she was delivering to breast cancer survivors. So I'm in awe of Thelma, and what she doesn't realize is that the real gift and joy is that she invited me to MC this event. So I thank her for that invitation. So I'd like to share with you all a bit about what we're going to talk about tonight and the theme that Thelma identified. And it just really speaks to her. Her theme tonight is, what is advocacy? Why is it important? And how do we become advocates for breast cancer and beyond? And I thought that was really great that Thelma said, you know, we're going to learn. And in our journey, in our breast cancer journey, we're going to learn how to advocate for ourselves. And that's really one of the key goals and mission of her organization. But I'd love to show the participants on our kickoff meeting this year, what does that mean beyond? If we can advocate for ourselves at a breast cancer level, what does that mean beyond, and how those same skills and those same tools and those same resources that we use in our breast cancer journey, we can use beyond that. So I thought that that theme really highlighted the transformative power of advocacy and the role that each of us can play in creating meaningful change in our communities. So throughout this evening, you're going to hear from incredible speakers and the advocates who really exemplify what it means to turn passion into action. So before we dive into tonight's program, I want to take a moment to thank each of you for joining us here on Zoom and through Facebook Live. Your presence really underscores the strength and unity of this community and demonstrates how together we're making a difference. And tonight's event is just another step in that journey. I'm going to just provide a really brief overview for what's in store for us tonight, so you have a good sense of our agenda. It's an exciting agenda, and I know that Thelma went through a lot of hard work and thoughts and thinking as to how she was going to spend tonight with you. So I'm grateful for that, and I think she did an amazing job. She's identified some dynamic speakers, some very powerful stories that will be shared with us this evening, and opportunities for engagement. We have great speakers from Andrea Roane, one of the most powerful advocates in our region, to our guest speaker, Dr. Sarah Horton. It seems that every meeting I'm at lately, I see Dr. Horton, and that is a true blessing. We also have Voices of Advocates that's featuring Sherry Dickinson Trout and Sylvia Powers. And our program this evening is dedicated to inspire and empower all of us to be effective advocates. So to kind of pull that all together, advocacy is about action. It's about standing up, speaking out, and making sure every voice is heard. So whether it's raising awareness about breast cancer, championing health equity, or supporting those affected, advocacy is key to driving change. So, and I hope tonight's discussion and stories encourage you to think about your role in that important work. So without further ado, I'm going to transition to our blessing, and to set the tone for our evening, I am pleased to introduce someone who embodies faith and compassion. Reverend Dr. Beryl Dennis will now lead us in a blessing. And Reverend Dr. Dennis, thank you for joining us and guiding us as we begin this meaningful evening.
Thank you so much, Deanna. Happy New Year to everybody, first of all. Let us bow our heads in prayer. Dear God, we are grateful for the many blessings in 2024. We are thankful for the many times you have made a way out of no way. Thank you for being with us through the highs and the lows of the 2024 journey. You gave us comfort and strength to help us with the challenges that are now behind us. And we trust you will help us with those challenges that lay before us in 2025. Thank you, God, for vision and hope for 2025. Continue to guide and empower all who will be impacted by the work of the Thelma D. Jones Breast Cancer Fund. Bless all the speakers, leaders, members, and visitors who are part of the support group. Lead us on a path of righteousness for your name's sake, so that all efforts to help are helpful, and all efforts to educate are informative, so that all that is done will give glory to you. Let the light of the Thelma D. Jones Breast Cancer Fund continue to shine in the immediate community and beyond, so that its message and works are a source of hope for all who need hope. We all need hope, dear God. Keep us encouraged. Let us work and not become weary. Let us look to you, God, as the source of our every need. Bless our sister, our friend, our leader, Thelma D. Jones. As she gives of herself, replenish her spirit with your spirit and restore her strength with your strength. We ask you, God, to show us how we can each help to make this organization all that it can be as we walk into this new journey called 2025. We pray with thanks and with hope. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much for that prayer. I'm going to move us forward in our evening tonight, but we really appreciate Reverend Dr. Beryl Dennis, that lovely prayer that you shared with us this evening. So now it's my great honor to introduce a truly inspiring individual who has made an incredible impact on the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area and beyond. Andrea Roane is an award-winning journalist, a fierce cancer advocate, and a trusted voice in our community. Throughout her illustrious career, Andrea has used her platform to champion breast health awareness, advocate for equitable health care, and amplify the voices of survivors and caregivers. Please join me in welcoming Andrea Roane, a passionate advocate and a beacon of hope in the breast cancer community. You're muted.
Andrea, you're muted.
How's that?
Yes.
Perfect.
Well, what a way to start 2025. Deanna, thank you. You don't know the technical issues that have happened here because my wonderful husband, my technical director, wasn't here to get us started, but we plowed through and we've got it. So I'm delighted to be joining everyone here this evening, wishing everyone a happy and healthy new year. 2025 is going to be a year of incredible change, and we all want to do our part in making it one of the best years ever. Dina, like you, I am in awe of Thelma. She is an amazing woman. And Thelma, you look marvelous, darling. I believe this is my fourth time speaking to your venerable organization, either in person or via Zoom. So here we are again, and I'm delighted to be here with you. You know, Thelma is a true warrior. Everybody who's been around her knows this, but I'm going to say it again. She's a true warrior and thought leader. She is the ever ready bunny. I always tell her that she's the ever ready bunny. She keeps going and going and going. I don't know how she does it. We all need to want to be like Thelma when we grow up, but you need lots of stamina, and she has it. And we thank God that she's sharing it with the rest of us. And I'm also inspired not only by Thelma, who is a survivor, but all the other survivors, warriors, and thrivers, the men and women that I reported on in my 25 years of doing Buddy Check 9. I am not a cancer survivor, but as many of you, I've walked the path as a caregiver. This year, my husband will celebrate 15 years as a prostate cancer survivor found through early detection, thank God. And earlier that same year, 2010, our son Andrew was diagnosed with a soft sarcoma. It was pressing on his spinal column. It was a benign mass, but as some of you may know, the cure can sometimes be as rough as the cancer. He is cancer-free, and we thank God for that. But his health journey continues, but he has my husband and myself as his most staunch advocates. The word advocate was something I never thought about before 1993. That's when Maria Chiquilla, my health producer, and I introduced the Buddy Check 9 program to the Washington, D.C. area. Channel 9 is a member of TEGNA, which was a Gannett corporation, and this idea cropped up in Jacksonville, Florida, and they brought it to Washington, D.C., and we thought about it. And what was impressive for us, what made it work for us, is some disturbing numbers that the nation's capital, the breast cancer mortality rates, especially among Black women, were the highest in the nation. And we wanted to know, what was it about this city the city that is capital of the world's most powerful nation, that you had those kinds of numbers. You would think you'd have all sorts of resources, but something was missing. There were several obvious barriers to care. We've talked about them before: transportation, insurance. A major one is fear. Women didn't want to know. They might have felt something, but didn't want to know. So how do you overcome the fear? And another more pervasive reason why: they didn't understand the importance of early detection, or they didn't know how to practice early detection. What were the steps? And that's what Buddy Check 9 proved to do. A simple concept. You remind them on the 9th of the month, and we did it on the 9th because, of course, we're Channel 9. Remind them on the 9th of the month to practice early detection. What does that look like? Breast self-exams, even though the medical community has gone back and forth on the importance of a breast self-exam, we say breast self-exams. You're the first ones to know your own body. You can communicate the changes when you see your doctor. Do the breast self-exams. The annual mammograms, clinical exams by a doctor or nurse practitioner. If there's a family history, genetic counseling may be important to you. And also lifestyle changes, diet and exercise. Simple, but we have to reinforce it. People need to be reminded of the things they need to do to take care of their own health. And that's what we did every month, and sometimes more than just once a month, the reminders, the profiles. And I have to thank the thrivers, survivors, warriors, and their families who allowed me to tell their stories. The accolades come to me, but I don't deserve the accolades because it was these men and women who allowed me to share their stories. Sometimes the stories didn't have the happiest of endings. I had one woman who called me and said she did everything wrong. She didn't do her exams, and when she felt something, she didn't say anything because she didn't want to know. When she told the doctor about it, he said when she first felt the breast lump, if she had come to him, it would have been the size of a 50-cent piece. Instead, by the time they removed it, it was the size of a softball. Think of a 50-cent piece and the size of a softball, bigger than a baseball, the softball. She was wonderful in helping me find other buddies, especially for men. But she called me in May, and by November of that same year, she had died of her breast cancer. And I will tell groups that I speak to, she didn't die as much from the cancer as she did from fear of knowing. Had she overcome her fear, she may have had a better outcome. And that's what Buddy Check 9 was all about: stressing early detection equaling better outcomes. And that's what we kept trying to do for the 25 years that I was there. And I'm proud of the accomplishments we made. The Buddy Check 9 and my own family's cancer journey taught me about the importance also of advocacy. As you heard Dina say earlier and Thelma say it, it's a call to action. It's about ensuring that every woman and man has access to care, the resources they need. Advocacy is what transforms individual stories into collective actions, and it's why we are gathered here tonight, not kicking and screaming, but shouting hooray for Thelma Jones leading the charge for all of us. Advocacy is using our voices to influence change, whether that means pushing for policy reforms, increasing access to care, having the month of April being designated as Cancer Prevention Month. That was a platform pushed by the Prevent Cancer Foundation, or simply being a source of strength for someone navigating a diagnosis. Again, over my 25 years of being an advocate through Buddy Check 9, I continue to be impressed by the incredible women and men in this space, inspired by them. Like our fearless leader, Thelma, who turned her personal trials into triumphs that secure better outcomes for all. We'll hear from the stories of survivors, hopefully some that have been recipients of the Andrea Roane Award, which I'm proud to have that named after me: Melanie Nix, Ife Namabuku, Jacqueline Beals, and so many others. They remind us that advocacy is personal and every voice matters. And to those who walk alongside those on the journey, we thank you for your strength. Your compassion fuels the fight. Thelma, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for those kind words and those words of encouragement and sharing your story and the great work that you've done to help cancer survivors and folks living with cancer. We appreciate all your efforts and all your work around awareness to help those living with the disease and as I mentioned, the caregivers and survivors. So next up, we have a video coming up from a very special individual. It's my privilege to really introduce someone whose story exemplifies the profound impact of advocacy and caregiving. It's Mr. Chris Dauphin. He's the husband of the late Dr. Lori Wilson. And I don't know, I hope that many of you on this call have had the great fortune to know her and to meet her. I met Lori, I don't know how many years back, but I met her through the same vein in which I met Thelma, but a little different. I started running, I really felt, again, community is super important. So when the PBS did a video or a series called The Emperor of All Maladies, and Lori was featured alongside with Chris in this body of work. And I said, you know what? I want to have a community awareness project in DC. I want to host it at Bus Boys and Poets and invite folks to the book of Emperor of All Maladies is huge. It's so hard to digest because it's so long. It's great, but it's just a lot. So having this video was really nice because it made it so much more digestible. So and when I found out Lori was in it, she's a surgeon, head of surgery at Howard. I said, let me reach out to her and see if she will come to my meeting and be on a panel. And we had like a special preview of the video. And sure enough, Lori, if you know Lori, she said yes. She was there. So we highlighted her in the video. We brought her in. We did a Q&A. She's such a magnificent presence and so kind and giving and down to earth. She's just an amazing woman. And I fell in love with her. And after that briefing that I had, or that showing of the Emperor of All Maladies, I just stayed in contact with her. I invited her to speak at many of my meetings. I just wanted everyone to know about her, and she would invite me to support a number of Howard's breast cancer events that they had, particularly their fundraising events. So we just created this lovely relationship. Lori is a brilliant cancer surgeon. She's a fierce breast cancer warrior, and she's a beloved friend to so many of us here tonight. And like I said, I know that some of us here on this call know her, but I just hope that everyone here just have had the chance to be graced with her presence. Dr. Wilson's legacy of advocacy and compassion continues to inspire. And we are fortunate to have Chris on a video with us this evening to share his unique perspective as her devoted caregiver. Through his journey, Chris has gained invaluable insights into the vital role of caregivers and the power of advocacy and navigating the challenges of breast cancer. Please join me in welcoming Chris Dauphin as he shares his heartfelt reflections and words of wisdom that remind all of us the strength and importance of advocacy. And we should have a video of Chris coming up soon that we're going to tee off relatively soon.
So while Sergio is
well, he's teeing that up. Do you want me to do the PSA?
well, if I in a few seconds, what I would like to say is not only do I have the great honors of having won the inaugural Andrea Roane Award, but I also had the honor of being awarded the Lori L. Wilson Conquering Cancer Award.
Mm.
And Lori had spoken at the Thelma D. Jones Breast Cancer Fund at least three times. And the very first time that she spoke, probably it was around 2015, she said it was the first time that she had publicly shared her story, because in the past it was with her family and close colleagues. So clearly we felt honored that she accepted that invitation. And so when Howard University and Lori made a selection for someone to bear her name and honor, Lori, of course, like Andrea, received the first award in their namesake. But to have been the person that she selected in that capacity was not overwhelming, but it also let me know that Lori and others who helped her make that selection thought a lot of the work that I was doing. She was the first person who called me a thought leader when one day I was telling her that I had a conflict and would not be able to attend it. And she's sending me this long text message telling me why I should be there and that I was a thought leader. And I'm thinking, oh, I never thought of myself as that. So just the fact that Lori had so much confidence in me and admired the work that I did and still doing, to name that award in my honor is still something that I'm very humbled about. And that the fact that I was given the award on a Thursday and Lori passed early the next morning. Mm. So we all sort of felt like she stayed around long enough to see the award being presented to me. And from that day on, I made a commitment that I would do all that I could to make sure that Laura's legacy for advocacy, for educating, for supporting, for mentoring, and being a great person was never left unheard. So it is why on a regular basis, you see pictures of Dr. Lori Wilson in the various newsletters that I send out. So thank you. And Sergio, are we ready now to show the video from Chris? There's no sound.
To carry on. Good evening and greetings. My name is Chris Dolphin. I stand before you today with the immense gratitude and a heart full of emotions as I join you virtually, having once again been provided the opportunity and honor to carry on the late, great Dr. Lori L. Wilson's legacy, whom I had the blessing to be her husband. Dr. Wilson was a trailblazer in every sense of the word, a transformative leader, a compassionate advocate, and a relentless force for good in the fields of medicine and cancer advocacy. As Howard University's first woman to hold the position of full tenure professor of surgery and the first woman to lead the division of surgical oncology, Dr. Wilson shattered barriers and paved the way for so many. I am honored and humbled to have been given this opportunity by Thelma D. Jones Breast Cancer Fund and the remarkable trailblazer herself, behind Thelma D. Jones. Thank you. To be entrusted with carrying forward the advocacy legacy of Dr. Wilson is a privilege I do not take lightly. I am particularly moved to be speaking alongside such esteemed individuals as Andrea Roane, an award-winning journalist and a champion in the fight against cancer. Also, my dear friend and Lori's colleague, Dr. Sarah Horton, amongst other wonderful speakers tonight. Although I cannot be with you in person this evening, as I am attending a celebration of life for a family friend also taken too soon by breast cancer, I feel deeply connected to the purpose of this gathering. It is for these reasons, women like my friend, women like Lori, and the countless other women battling breast cancer, that I remain steadfast in my advocacy efforts and unwavering supporter of Thelma D. Jones and the Thelma D. Jones Breast Cancer Fund. The disparities in breast cancer outcomes for Black and brown women are far too great to ignore. This is why organizations like Thelma D. Jones Breast Cancer Fund are so vital, and why we must continue to champion access to clinical trials and treatments that are inclusive and equitable. Lori herself was a testament to the life-extending power of clinical trials. Her courage in facing triple-negative metastatic breast cancer and her participation in cutting-edge research not only prolonged her life, but also continue the advancements that will save other lives. This evening theme, what is advocacy, resonates deeply with me. To me, advocacy is the lifeblood of progress. It is water and sunlight to nurture the seeds of change. Without advocacy, the advancements we celebrate today would not be possible. And yet there is so much more to do. Progress requires consistent care, relentless effort, and the voices of champions like those gathered here tonight. As we step into the new year, let us recommit ourselves to this vital work. Let us continue to support the conversation, to champion clinical trials, and to empower organizations like the Thelma D. Jones Breast Cancer Fund. Together, we can carry forward Lori's legacy and ensure that her impact continues to grow and flourish. Thank you for this opportunity to share on this meaningful occasion. God bless you all, and may this new year bring hope, healing, and progress for us all. Happy New Year.
Thank you so much for those kind words, Chris. We really appreciate the thoughts and sentiments that you shared with us this evening. And we're just grateful that you were able to share that message. I'm going to move on into a PSA because as we celebrate advocacy, community, and progress, we should also acknowledge the importance of staying informed about critical health issues that affect us all. And that's sort of to the point of what Andrea said earlier this evening about, not being fearful, but really opening ourselves up to information so that we can support our own health and support ourselves and advocate for ourselves. So tonight I want to take a moment to share a brief public service announcement about emerging viral health concerns. As advocates, caregivers, and survivors, staying vigilant about public health developments is essential, not just for ourselves, but for the communities we serve. In recent weeks, there's been several key updates from public health officials regarding viral illnesses, and it's vital for us to stay aware and prepared. There's the norovirus. This highly contagious virus continues to be a concern during the winter months as it spreads rapidly through contaminated food, surfaces, and close contact. Symptoms include nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea. Frequent hand washing and proper food hygiene are the best defense against this virus. Also, let's not forget COVID-19. After a period of decline, COVID-19 levels are surging across the U.S. again. Experts attribute this to new variants and increased indoor gatherings during the winter season. Vaccination remains the most effective way to protect ourselves, along with wearing masks in crowded indoor spaces and maintaining good ventilation. Also, there's bird flu concerns. The CDC has reported mutations in Louisiana bird flu patient's virus strain that may increase its ability to spread to humans. While this doesn't signal a pandemic, it's a reminder of the need for ongoing vigilance and rapid public health responses. The CDC advises anyone who works closely with birds or poultry to take extra precautions and report any symptoms of illness immediately. How can we stay safe? Keep up to date with our vaccines, including the flu shot and COVID-19 boosters. Wash our hands frequently and disinfect high-touch surfaces. Stay informed by following updates from trusted public health sources like the CDC and our local health departments. As we work together to advocate for health equity and better outcomes from everyone, we must also take steps to protect ourselves and our loved ones from these preventable health risks. Thank you for your attention, and let's continue to prioritize both individual and community health as we move forward in 2025. Okay, so as we're moving through our agenda, I'd like to introduce our next speaker, which I'm very excited to introduce to everyone this evening. We, as mentioned earlier, have had the opportunity to have a number of guest speakers at our program this evening, and I'd like to just take a moment to introduce Dr. Sarah Horton. Sarah is the Strategical Clinical Trials Access and Partnerships at Lead Quantum Leap Healthcare Collaborative. She's an affiliate associate professor at Howard University Cancer Center. And as I may have mentioned this a little earlier, but I know that it has been, I've been attending a number of breast cancer meetings in the last year or so, and it's always a treat and a joy to see Sarah at that at those meetings. She serves as the Strategic Clinical Trials Access and Partnership Lead at Quantum Leap Healthcare Collaborative, where she is instrumental in expanding access to innovative cancer treatments and fostering collaborations that prioritize patient-centered care. Additionally, she is an affiliate associate professor at Howard University Cancer Center, where she combines her expertise as an oncologist with a deep commitment to addressing disparities in cancer care. Dr. Horton's work exemplifies the intersection of research, advocacy, and clinical excellence, making a lasting impact on the lives of patients, particularly those in marginalized communities. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Sarah Horton as she shares her insights and expertise with us this evening.
Thank you, Deanna. And thank you, Thelma. You're right. I mean, how many times have we talked about this moment? And so I am just so honored to be here and be a part of today's program and advocacy, you know, listening to everyone's story and hearing about everyone's advocacy journey. It just makes it that much easier for me to talk about it. And I almost feel like family, because like you said, Deanna, you know, these days I see Thelma at conferences. I see you. I see Andrea, who is, you know, our staunch warrior. And Thelma and Andrea have such a wonderful, close relationship with Howard, which is where, you know, I was for about 8 or 9 years, and which is such an important part of the care that Black women get in this city in terms of all care, but specifically our breast cancer care. And so I am honored to be here tonight to be your guest speaker to talk a little bit about advocacy. And also Chris spoke about Lori Wilson, Dr. Lori Wilson, who is a very good friend of mine. As we all know how special she is. It was also an incredible honor to work alongside with her, taking care of patients. She was inspiration to all of us, to the entire faculty, on how to not only be a good clinician, but to be an advocate for your patients. So it's extra special to speak tonight with kind of her her presence. So I am going to, everyone has told such wonderful stories about their journey. I'm going to do a PowerPoint presentation. So I hope this is not too elementary for people. I know everyone here is an advocacy expert that I've seen, but what I'll do is talk a little bit about what advocacy means to me in terms of the things that we can do. I will talk just a little anecdotal journey for me about advocacy. So I came to Washington, D.C. in the late 90s for my training in oncology, and I was at Georgetown Lombardi, and I focused then on health disparities, looking at the difference between Black and white women with breast cancer. But you can imagine back in the late 90s, especially at a place like Georgetown, there wasn't the focus on disparities that there was back then. So, you know, I didn't have a mentor. There wasn't anybody of color who was really not even of color, not in color, who was really, really interested, but they did support me in doing some work. And that was the first time that I really understood the importance of, from a clinician standpoint, focusing on these poor outcomes that we were seeing in Black women that people would kind of whisper about, but never really brought it to the light to say what is happening and why is this happening. You know, you fast forward and my journey brought me to Howard, which was, I think, something beyond just my choice. It was, you know, something I think that was destined to be. And those were probably the best 8 years of my life, working with a faculty that not only was focusing on the clinical part of taking care of breast cancer patients, but that's the first time I really was exposed to community advocacy. And that's where I saw people who saw the changes that needed to be made. And instead of just kind of whispering about it, you know, we're out there doing the work. And not only just, you know, the clinical work, but our patient navigators, Thelma's relationship with Howard, Andrea talking about not only buddy check, but, you know, being at all of our functions and helping to spread the word. So advocacy for me started then. So I'm going to fast forward to my PowerPoint that I'm going to share. Let's see. And I'm not great with technology, so please tell me if you are not seeing a PowerPoint.
We're seeing it.
Okay. Okay, let me put it in slideshow mode. Oh, are you seeing it as a larger?
Yes.
Okay,
Mhm.
great. All right, so this is just on the power of advocacy. So this is one of my favorite slides. So this was our team at Howard. Lori in the middle was our fearless leader as our surgical oncologist. Dr. Jacqueline Dunmore Griffith is our radiation oncologist, and I was a medical oncologist. And again, it was, you know, it was rare to have 3 Black women oncologists all working together. And we called ourselves we called ourselves the A team. We were hoping we were the A team. We felt like we were, but this was my advocacy team at Howard. So what is advocacy? Advocacy, again, is using our voice to bring the message of what's important to us in terms of promoting a cause or a policy. And for breast cancer, as we've heard already, raising awareness is one of the most important things we can do as an advocate. And that means using our voice to talk to others about the importance of, in breast cancer, especially early detection, and explaining to your friends in the community, not only the importance of getting your mammograms, but follow up and what that can mean to you. Driving change by taking that same message beyond just the community, but talking to policymakers, talking to politicians, using your voice to, you know, send a note to your insurer if there is something that is important that's not happening. And anyone can do this. You don't have to be in a special role. And that is one of the things that I think the community groups do a really great job at bringing people together to let them know that they have the power to make change. And also near and dear to my heart is in advocacy and speaking about what's important, we can start to move the needle with clinical research to encourage participation in clinical trials, because we talk about the disparities, and disparities basically is a group that has a different outcome compared to another group in a disease, and you wonder why. Why does this group of women, for example, Black women in breast cancer, why do, as a whole, Black women with breast cancer have a 40% higher chance of dying from breast cancer compared to white women? Well, the only way that we'll be able to answer that question is if we're able to study Black women who have breast cancer, and we do that in the guise of a clinical trial. And so just explaining why the ways that we get to the answers to disparities is through clinical research is so important in addressing the community and developing trust so that we could move forward with it. So why is advocacy important? Again, amplifying our voices, especially for groups that don't usually feel like they're being heard, underrepresented groups like Black women, for bridging disparities, as we talked about, to try looking at the differences in the outcome of groups and talking about why we need to focus on changing those numbers, and then driving the research that helps us to answer those clinical scientific questions about why some groups don't do as well as others with certain diseases. So when we look at breast cancer disparities, what are those things about breast cancer that are different in Black women that we need to address? One is the higher mortality, and that just means that, again, that Black women are more likely to die from breast cancer than other groups. The underrepresentation in research, the fact that when we look at all of the people who are in clinical trials, and in clinical trial participation is a volunteer. No one is made to be in a trial. So when you look at the people who volunteer, the vast majority are not people of color. It's usually about 90% are white. We have about 4% in breast cancer trials that are Black women, compared to the US population, and where we're 13%. So we're always moving to increase that number so that the women who are being tested, being not only tested, but are being evaluated and followed, and the results that we find when we find that a new drug works really well include women of color. So we know that the results that they've gotten in that test also are results that we're seeing in someone who look like us. And delayed diagnosis in Black women is something that we often see, and that is usually reflected by, as we heard, being diagnosed at a later stage, as opposed to finding that breast cancer at the 50-cent size, finding it at the softball size. And we know that there are a lot of barriers to care, meaning that there are a lot of reasons that women, and especially women who don't have access to healthcare and insurance, are not able to get to the doctors as often as they'd like, or because of transportation, or because they have they're caregivers for other people. So all of these are issues that we are trying to address on an advocacy level to try to improve. And so why is it important for us to be involved? Well, we talked about clinical research and the fact that once we are able to find answers to why we have some differences in the way drugs work in different populations, it hopefully will result in that group that doesn't do as well doing better, maybe with a different combination of drugs that was found on a clinical trial. And without that type of participation of diverse people, we won't ever really know how the drugs work in that population. And then we also know that now with clinical research, we're at a level of being better equipped to find a person's cancer and find a drug that is much more specifically tailored toward their tumor because of some of the genetic tests that we can do, and it increases the chances that person will get a better response with their treatment. So all of these things are happening real time. People are following it, they know it, they talk to their doctors about it. And we know that not all doctors tell their patients all of the things that are going on in medicine. And so we're also trying to fill that gap, educate patients before they even get to the doctor so they know what to ask for. Sometimes patients are not even talked about in terms of clinical research, and clinical trials aren't mentioned. And so just as a basic, we're wanting to empower women to say, hey, doc, is there a clinical trial do you think that I might be a candidate for? Shame your doctor into making sure they mention clinical research. And so when we talk about all of these things and being an advocate, here are some ways that you can be an advocate if you're not in that space already. The first thing is just to educate yourself about the disparities that exist. And when we talk about it, usually at wherever you get your care, there's someone who could tell you a little bit about some of the issues that revolve around your diagnosis. When it comes to breast cancer, we have several organizations. One of the premier in Washington, D.C. is and beyond is the Thelma D. Jones Breast Cancer Fund. Every month you can come here and hear all kinds of things about what's going on with breast cancer. Along with that, there are other groups. There are some that are, focused in on women of color, like Tiger Lily and Sisters Network Incorporated and Touch, Ricky Fairley and Touch BBC. The Black Women's Health Initiative is a wealth of knowledge. The American Cancer Society has just started an incredible new clinical study called Voices, which is trying to recruit 100,000 Black women to just answer questions. This is not a clinical trial where you have to take a therapy or anything, but what they're doing is they're gathering data about Black women, what we don't have, so that as things happen in the lives of Black women, if you're diagnosed with a breast cancer, they can go back and say, oh, what was she eating at that time? What was medications was she on? What was her life, her family history like, to try to link some things outside of just that cancer tumor, but your environment that may play a part in illness. So if you haven't gone to American Cancer Society and looked at the Voices clinical study, please do. It's a very impactful study that just opened. The other is to know where to direct people to get information on clinical trials. We all have seen clinicaltrials.gov. I think we have it. Even for a physician, as an oncologist, it was just difficult for me to navigate. It was time consuming. It didn't make sense sometimes. Sometimes the information was wrong. I don't want to disparage it, but it's a difficult software to navigate. So breastcancertrials.org, which I have to say, the organization I work with is now the keeper of it and helps to run it. It's free, it's online, it's a software where you can go, anyone can go to, but it's focused on breast cancer patients. You put your information in and it can tell you all the breast cancer clinical trials, and they go through it, and they take the written summary and they rewrite it at a level that a patient would understand, with words that we understand if you're not medical. And one of the things we've just recently added last year, which I love and pushed for, is a clinical trial navigator of color. So we hired she's a breast cancer survivor. She's a woman of color. She's a PhD nurse, oncology navigator, and she is at an 800 number that anyone can call and say, look, her name is Sabrina. Can you help me? I don't even know where to start with this. Or they could say, hey, I've gone through it and I've got these trials. Can you help me connect with the institutions? So that's just a push for knowing that that's available. When I first went to work for my organization and I heard about this, and I'm treating patients for 15, 20 years. I said, why haven't I heard of this before? And that was one of the things I vowed to do. I said, you know, you all just don't talk about this enough. You have to let people know it's available. And then lastly, to advocate for policy changes. And again, that's, you know, all the way from going to Capitol Hill to just sitting at home and going online and writing your politician to push for equitable access for mammograms, for you know, treatment, for getting health services in our neighborhoods where they aren't. So all of these aren't going to happen without us all collectively somehow, you know, expressing our anger and our need for that to change. So success stories very quickly. When we talk about policy change, one of the things that I love is that through advocacy, that now the FDA is requiring pharmaceutical companies, when they come in with a new clinical trial, they have to have something called a diversity action plan, where they say, this is how I'm going to specifically outreach and work to make sure that I get the diverse patient population that reflects the incidence that this drug is the disease this drug is geared towards. So if it's diabetes, well, you look at the incidence of diabetes, which, you know, affects our population in a higher number. They're going to have a target number that is, you know, higher than other areas that they're going to have to hit. And not only do these diversity action plans require the pharmaceutical companies to submit it, they also check them periodically to make sure they hit the milestones, to make sure they do actually do what they say that they need to do and are going to do. So that was a big win. Community impact, again, just using our community voice to try to increase our awareness about our needs for the underserved community. And then again, clinical research to increase diversity in our clinical trials, especially with a disease that impact us in a much higher way, like triple-negative breast cancer. So our role in advocacy is that anybody can be an advocate. Anyone can make a difference. And if you have been you've experienced the disease, telling your personal story, advocating with groups like Thelma's, and, you know, organizations at Howard, join groups, amplify your voice, find out what they're doing. If it seems overwhelming to do it on your own, there are groups, again, like Thelma and Sisters Network that they'll tell you what to do. You know, this is happening here. You just show up and tell your story. Attend events, write your legislators, and together we can, you know, work to try to change these numbers and improve the outcome, because it can happen. A lot of the things that cause the difference in the outcomes are things that we can actually change. So that was our call to action. Get involved. Talk to your doctor, volunteer, share what you've learned. It's not just about breast cancer, like someone said, it's about equity across the board. And then I just want to thank you for being advocates. Thank you for letting me, you know, just give a little bit of a talk. That's my email if anybody ever wanted to email for anything. And thank you. Let me stop sharing.
Thank you, Dr. Horton. That was amazing and great information. You touched on so many different angles, clinical trials, advocacy, groups, resources. So thank you so much for all of that information. And I'm going to open the floor up. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to write them in the chat, or you can raise your hand and I'll call on you. But I'll start us off with a question. So as I mentioned, that was such a great presentation and you touched on so many different components. I'm going to go to the clinical trial. I've heard so much. I've heard you speak about the resources and how you can tap into clinicaltrial.org and help you find clinical trials a bit easier than what we've seen. To your point, the challenges that sometimes we can have when we go to the online or I don't know if it's NIH.
Yes, NCI's clinical trial.
NCI, yes.
Yep.
So I'm gonna ask you what are I'm gonna go beyond actually finding those clinical trials, but I'm curious, what are some of the biggest challenges you've encountered in ensuring equitable access to clinical trials, particularly for marginalized communities, and how can advocates help address these barriers?
Oh, that's, thank you for that question, because this is something we've worked on a long time in different ways. I think that one of the biggest barriers, there's two huge ones that for me, one is access to the trials. Trials are usually now done at academic centers or, big research centers. And the majority of care that people get for cancer, especially underserved communities, are community oncology cancer centers. Most of the time, those centers are not doing clinical studies. So that was the one, just, where are the clinical trials being done? And then secondly is even knowing about clinical trials, making sure that the providers are interested in getting their patients to a clinical trial, mention it to their patients, because there's a little bit of providers may not want to lose their patients, right? They don't want to, if they don't do clinical research, sending them to the university, they don't want to lose them. They're told, yes, we'll take care of your patient on the trial, but they'll always be your patient and come back. But historically, that has not always happened. We're getting better with that. And I think that the universities and the institutions that have done the studies have realized that they need to have a communication line that's open, so that the primary doc or oncologist or primary care doc knows what's going on with that patient when they're under a clinical care at another institute. And then the other part is the patient themselves. A lot of patients don't want to leave their doctor to go to another place. And so making sure that if we're not able to get the research done at the place, we start building relationships that, are open, that the patient sees that, oh, even though, my institution doesn't do research, I see the name of whatever, Georgetown, Howard, all the time here. The docs are here sometimes. I know that they talk to my docs. So that's just one way we're thinking about how we can expand the reach of clinical research to places that historically just aren't set up to do that.
And I'm going to piggyback on that. I know that we have a limited amount of time, so I'm going to just squeeze one more question in to piggyback on that. I'm hearing more and more that some community, and you just said that some of your community docs may not be doing the research there, but I hear, with the FDA making sure that industry puts in their diversity action plan. Are you seeing that it's a shift towards more community practices or community docs having the ability to actually do the research at the community level?
Yes is the short answer. It's actually a part of what's going on a larger level with healthcare. Years ago, there were a lot of solo practitioners and solo practices. Well, now most care is under a network of some sort. And most institutions are not on their own. And so it's become actually easier to do clinical research when you're under a network, because the network includes some places that are really well resourced and do research and some places that don't. And so what we're finding is we can, I have a clinical trial, I Spy Breast, that I work with. So part of my job is to seek out these networks that take care of patients of color and rural patients and say, look, let's do a contract for this clinical trial and let's open it up to every institution under your network. Not only the ones that you can do clinical research with, but also the smaller ones. And let's figure out how we can overcome the barriers. So if they don't have the right MRI at their institution, let's set it up so that when it's time, they can go to someone who has it. And by being a little proactive and thoughtful about it, you can identify where those gaps are, and in many cases, fill it in a way that the patient can stay where they are, but they can kind of, and get the infusion, which is actually the most important part, the most intimate part for the patient, and the easiest one for places to do. Most places give infusions already, but the more kind of intricate procedures that are in clinical trials that they may not be able to do, like a procedure or an imaging study, can be done elsewhere, or a pathology review if it's a little complicated, and the community center isn't used there, or pathologist doesn't do that. We can send it out and to have it done. So those are some of the ways we're looking at this.
Thank you. That is super helpful. So thank you so much for that. And we have time for one question. And Bria, your hand is raised. Please, we'll make this our final question.
Good evening. Can you all hear me? Okay,
Yes.
perfect. Thank you, Dr. Horton, for the
But if you
information.
could
Very
talk a
informative.
little louder,
Yes,
because
I
I'm
could do that.
getting messages, text messages saying that people are not hearing us very well.
Is that better?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Horton, for the information. My name is Bria. I am currently 33 years old, stage 4 inflammatory breast cancer, and I am on my second clinical trial at Fairfax location. And I know this meeting is about advocacy, but when I do my infusions, I don't see too many people who look like me or in similar situations. So how can I advocate? Because I do know there are a lot of younger people who are getting diagnosed with cancer, but I just don't see them in the infusion site. So how can I say, hey, there's this clinic or there's this study, go to this website, input this oncotype or anything like that? How can I advocate from that wheelhouse, as opposed to, joining support groups locally saying, hey, yeah, I'm 23 or I'm 33 as well, but I just go here and this is all they can do for me, as opposed to myself, who's been offered 2 clinical trials. How can I say, hey, this is my doctor, maybe they can help, or search for this specific thing in clinicaltrials.gov?
First, thank you. Thank you for even wanting, to jump in and do that, because your voice is so important. It's so important. And the fact that you are in clinical research now and I can hear in the strength in your voice that, you are a warrior, and people need to hear that as well. So that
Yes.
being said, what comes to mind when you ask those questions to me are some of the groups, the advocacy groups that I've worked with that involve women, especially young women with breast cancer. There's something about, being amongst people who are going through the same thing, who have that same mindset. Let me get out there and make a change. It's really empowering. So Tiger Lily Foundation is one group that I've worked with that has a presence in this area, based here. Mema Carmo is the lead, but the target, they have Tiger Lily Angel Advocates, and they're young. They tend to focus on younger women, women of color, and they do everything from go to Capitol Hill. I've been on the Hill with them, speaking to the politicians, to out in the communities in health centers. So that's one. And again, their Sisters Network Incorporated, that also has chapters. They don't have a local chapter. I work with them a lot. The PG County is trying to open one, so hopefully there will be one soon here. But and I'm not sure if they have one in Virginia. And then, looking at Ricky Fairley's site, Touch Black Breast Cancer, where she is starting to recruit people to do different things, especially young people. I think they have a whole section now that her daughter leads, of young Black women. And again, I think it's anyone, but they focus on young women of color that are just out doing a number of things. They do these brunches, awareness, because I guess young women now love to brunch. So it was like, I forget, I think it's called, it was Sisters, it was Taking Care of Sis.
It's
Yeah, I love.
I was going to mention that. Take care of your sis. And
Yeah.
it's a brunch going to 6 different cities. I do believe, I can find out, I'm on their board. I think that there is a brunch in DC. So
Okay.
I'll get Bria's information from Thelma. I'll find out. I'll send an email. It may have already happened. I know the one in New York City did, but let me check and see, and I'll get it to Bria.
Thank
That-
you.
I love that idea. You know how many young women, were touched by that whole. So, right, going out, thinking out of the box, to different ways to get the word out, but that's what these groups do. So if you're interested in that, if if going out and connecting with another group is something that you want to do, and you could even suggest they do things at Fairfax, and connect with the outreach group at Fairfax and do things together.
Okay, thank you. Yes, thank you for the suggestions.
Sure. And good luck with it. Sounds like you are just doing all the right things.
Yes, I had scans today, so praying that next week I'll be still on the trial. So thank you.
All right.
Thank you so much, Dr. Horton. As I mentioned, you are a wealth of information, and I learn something new every time I hear your voice. So thank you for all the work that you do. We
Oh,
really
thank you.
appreciate you.
Appreciate it.
So we're gonna move on into our meeting tonight, and next we have two advocates, and I just have the honor and pleasure to introduce these two voices of advocates, Ms. Sherry Dinkinson Trott. She's a breast cancer survivor and a disability advocate. She's a Thelma D. Jones Breast Cancer Fund ambassador. She's a co-founder of Happy on Wheels LLC. And then we have a second voice, which is Sylvia Powers, a breast cancer advocate and leader at the National Consortium of Breast Cancer. Sherry, can you give us the honor of hearing your voice, and then we'll move on to Sylvia. Oh, sure, you're on mute.
Actually has a video, but
You're
if
on
you would like to say
Oh, is it gonna
something,
be the video? I didn't know if it was her voice or the video.
it's okay. If she'd like to say something, we'll give her 1 minute.
Oh, no, it's on the video, so,
Okay, perfect.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah, that'd be great, thank you.
thank you.
My name is Chris Duffy. I stand before you today with immense gratitude and a heart full of emotions as I join you virtually, having
Hello,
once
everyone.
again
My
been
name is
provided.
Deanna Darlington. I'm the Senior Director of Public Policy and Advocacy at the Christopher and Deanna Foundation. Hello, everyone. My name is Kimberly Beer. I'm the Senior Director of Public Policy and Advocacy at the Christopher and Deanna Foundation.
Can we turn it up a little?
Privilege of advocating on behalf of individuals living and who are impacted by paralysis. And I'm here with one of our incredible regional champions, Sherry, and she's going to share a little bit about why advocacy is important for her.
Hi, everyone. I'm so thrilled to be a regional advocate for the Christopher and Deanna Foundation. I'm a part of Civic for 41 years, and I will tell you in 2 words the importance of advocacy. Advocacy is positive. So make sure you speak up and you speak loud. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Next we're gonna have Sylvia, and Sylvia is a breast cancer advocate and leader at the National Consortium of Breast Cancer.
Hi, thank you so very much. First of all, I wanted to say that I met Thelma D. Jones several years ago, and I always wanted the opportunity to work with her. And recently, she joined us with the National Consortium of Breast Centers for an advocacy group. And I was so touched by her spirit, by her energy, by her passion that I was given an opportunity to select one person that would be my co-chair for the steering committee for the 35th interdisciplinary conference in Las Vegas for the National Consortium of Breast Centers, and she was the person I selected. This is my first time. I've been an advocate for almost 30 years. primarily focusing on African American women and medically underserved women. But this is my first time working on the other side and dealing with the medical side as well as advocacy. So I'm very excited to have her with me and joining forces and to help us to bridge that gap between advocacy and the medical field. Now, I'm going to put my email in the chat for two reasons. One is that we are hosting our 34th summit, well, 31st conference, which will have the Survivors and Advocates Summit in Las Vegas in March from the 21st through the 23rd. The actual Advocacy and Survivor Summit is going to be on that Sunday. And we would love for you to be able to participate. There is a special rate for advocates and survivors, which is only $95. So I would love to be able to get the support of advocates across the country. We've got an amazing program that is being put together. If you email me, I'll give you all the details for that particular program, the itinerary, and we have some special rates at Caesar's Palace where the program is being held. The next thing that I want to share is that at that summit, we will be doing the NCBC Heart of Advocacy Award. And I would like to forward you that information to share with other advocates so that they can nominate someone for this amazing award with all the details. The deadline is midnight on January the 31st. So I'd like to send that information to you. And briefly, I want to share one thing. When I started my career as an advocate, I wrote this book, Celebrating Life, African American Women Speak Out About Breast Cancer. And I interviewed 62 survivors from 16 states, survivorship from a few months to 45 years, age from 25 to 89. And when I was working on this project, I was in a room with a bunch of advocates and we were talking. No one had actually seen a mastectomy. The majority of the people that, of course, the people we were working with were not breast cancer survivors. So when I started working on this project, I took a picture of a woman who had had a mastectomy, and I'm trying to see if I can show it. Anyway, when I was photographing her, um, she let her drape dropped, and as she went to catch her drape, you could see the silhouette of her body. And I just asked her to look up, and I took the photo. That photo was so powerful. When I went home, I wrote this poem. It's called Am I Not a Woman? Am I not a woman? My shape has been changed. My form has been revised. My breast has been desized. Am I not a woman? My heart still loves. My arms still hug. My body still craves. Am I not a woman? My hips still swerve. My lips still entice. My eyes still allure. Am I not a woman? My fingers still caress. My mouth still soothes. My ears still listen tenderly. Am I not a woman?
Nice.
That's something that women struggle with. And as advocates, we help to project that voice. I want to thank you for this opportunity to share with you. I look forward to hearing with you and working with you, and definitely working with Thelma. And please feel free to email me, especially Bria, the young woman who had inflammatory breast cancer. We do have a connection with a foundation that does research on inflammatory breast cancer. And I personally know a young lady who is a 9-year inflammatory breast cancer survivor that I would love to connect her with. Thank you again for this opportunity.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you, Sylvia and Sherry, and your voices of advocacy. Next, we're going to move into one more public announcement. And this one I just heard about on, well, I believe it came out in the news about a week or either maybe even this week. And I heard it on the news this morning. And Thelma, of course, is very forward thinking and wanted this included in our agenda. So as we work to empower one another with knowledge, we believe it's important to share critical health information that can impact our lives and the lives of those we care about. So tonight we wanted to highlight an urgent public health advisory released just this past week by the U.S. Surgeon General. This advisory shed light on the link between alcohol consumption and cancer, including 7 types of cancer, such as breast cancer. While many of us are familiar with the general health risks associated with alcohol, this advisory emphasizes the direct connection to cancer risk, even with light or moderate drinking. For women, and particularly those with a history of breast cancer or those at a higher risk, this information is especially vital. So let's take a moment to reflect on the choices we can make to protect our health and the importance of raising awareness about the risks within our communities. Now I'll share a brief public service announcement with details on this crucial topic. The link between alcohol and cancer. On January 6, 2025, the U.S. Surgeon General issued a groundbreaking advisory highlighting the direct link between alcohol consumption and cancer. Research has confirmed that drinking alcohol increases the risk of developing 7 types of cancer, including breast cancer, liver cancer, colorectal cancer, esophageal cancer, oral cancer, throat cancer, voice box, or larynx cancer. Even small amounts of alcohol can elevate cancer risk, and the likelihood increases with higher levels of consumption. This advisory aims to raise awareness about the health risks associated with drinking, empower individuals to make informed decisions, and encourage healthcare providers to discuss alcohol use as part of regular health screenings. So what can we do? We can educate ourselves to understand the risk about alcohol consumption on our health. We can reduce or eliminate alcohol use. Limiting or avoiding alcohol can significantly lower your cancer risk. We can advocate for awareness, which is, again, what this meeting is about, advocacy, and share this message with our community to help others make informed choices. So for more information, visit the U.S. Surgeon General website or consult your healthcare provider about ways to reduce alcohol-related risks to your health. Your health is in your hands, but together we can reduce the burden of cancer in our communities. And again, thank you, Thelma, for the forward thinking and allowing us to bring these public PSAs to our meeting this evening. I'm going to step back and hand the mic back over to Thelma with updates, and then Andrea with her closing remarks. And but before I get to mine, I'd just like to thank all of our speakers again. The insights and information you provided was so helpful this evening. Thank you so much for sharing and being and for the giving of your time and spending that with us this evening. We greatly appreciate you.
Thank you. And I share the sentiments that you just made regarding our speakers, but because Andrea is going to do closing remarks, I will not steal her thunder, but I do want to thank you on behalf of the Thelma D. Jones Breast Cancer Fund, Deanna, for serving as the MC and shepherding us through this wonderful meeting tonight. As we know, this is our first meeting of the new year, and it always sets the tone for what comes the other 11 months. So we've started out on a great tone, on a great, a great tone and a great step, great milestone. So thank you for leading us that way. And just a few announcements and other acknowledgement that Andrea may not know about. I'm pleased that we have several of our Thelma D. Jones Breast Cancer Fund ambassadors on the line: Sherry Dickinson-Trott, Bria Hickson, Scarlett Small, who's also a board member, Denise Triplett, Sylvia Jackson, and a dear friend who just had to exit, Dr. Alexander Mendoza Hurtado. Earlier, when I mentioned that our outreach has extended to Guatemala and Spain, it is because of Georgetown professor Dr. Alejandra uh, Mendoza Hurtado. She has spent, because of COVID and new addition to her life, she has spent quite a bit of time in Spain. And she's also invited her mother, who lives in Guatemala. And there were times that Alejandra was in Guatemala. So one of the benefits of Zoom is that you don't actually have to be here in person, but you can be with us on Zoom, especially when it is working. I also want to mention that thanks to our newsletter editor, Lashana Thomas Walker, who is a PhD candidate, has produced a wonderful recognition to both Andrea Roane and Sylvia Powers. So if you have not seen the news or our newsletter, please do take a look at that. Just a couple of announcements that they are listed on the program, on the agenda. So if you haven't got a copy or haven't had a chance to look at it, I am pleased to call it to your attention, which is the meeting of our next support group, which is Wednesday, February the 19th at 6:30. And it is our annual Black History meeting, where for the past 6 or 7 years, or maybe longer, our theme has been male breast cancer survivors, men's health, including behavioral health. So I hope all of you, and this involves all of us, that we have men in our lives, whether they are our relatives, colleagues, neighbors, friends, or the men who get on our nerves. But take an opportunity to invite them to this wonderful meeting. And also the Southwest Neighborhood Assembly is hosting its annual Black History Celebration meeting on Monday, February the 24th at 7 p.m. at Arena Stage at the Mead Center for American Theater. I am pleased to have been the founder of the Southwest Community's Black History Program in 1986, and we have had a Black History Program annually. We may have missed one, but we have had a Black History Program annually since then. And this year, we will focus on urban renewal and the impact it's had on the Southwest community, past, present, and future. And for those of you who may not be aware of urban renewal, it was a project that occurred in the 50s where Congress felt the Southwest, which is one of the quadrants of the District of Columbia, was a sore eye in the foreground of the Capitol. So they said, we're going to tear it down. We're going to move the residents out, tear it down, rebuild. And of course, the residents were supposed to return. Well, more than 23,000 people were affected by urban renewal. Most of them were African Americans. So that meeting in February will talk about the impact of urban renewal. And now we're sort of looking at a new term, gentrification. So it's going to be a lively and thought-provoking panel discussion where you will hear from people who were actually affected by urban renewal, either themselves or through hearing the voices of their parents. So please consider attending that, because we are also taking it to the level of how it's affected people health-wise, which is why the Thelma D. Jones Breast Cancer Fund is also extremely active in that. I'm working with the PhD candidate student, Carolyn Swoop, who is doing her PhD work around urban renewal. She's a PhD student at Columbia University. So it is not just from the Southwest Neighborhood Assemblies perspective that I have my heart in this, but also from a health perspective and involving the Thelma D. Jones Breast Cancer Fund. So that concludes my announcement, and I want to thank you again, and I will turn it over to, is it Andrea or Dina next?
Andrea.
Andrea. Yep, you're muted, Andrea. Yep, you're still muted, Andrea.
Here we go. Here
There
we
you
go.
go.
That's it.
All right, very good. Keeping it short and sweet, it's been a wonderful program, sharing it with friends like Sarah and you, Thelma, new friends, Dina. Great to meet you, and wonderful job being an MC. As we kick off this new year of awareness and support, I ask that you do as I do, not just what I say. I started this day with my taking charge of my breast health by having my annual mammogram. It was a little bit more involved than I anticipated, but the results in the end were good. I was not alone in the exam room. Meet my buddy, Earl E. Bird. Earl E. Bird is here to remind everyone that you're an advocate, but you have to start with yourself. Early detection equals better outcomes, and that, I believe, is true. So I challenge you to reflect on what advocacy means in your own life. Ask yourself, like Bria, how you can lend your voice to those in most need, how you can turn your pain into purpose and action. And in 2025, follow Earl E. Bird. Let's commit to moving forward together on behalf of all of our buddies. Early detection does equal better outcomes. Happy New Year. It's been a great program. Thank you, Thelma. I turn it back to you.
Thank you so much, Andrea, and all of our speakers tonight. And I'm like Andrea, I'm gonna make it really short and sweet. It was, again, an honor to be included in anything that Thelma's name is on, but also it made it even a little more special for me to have the recognition of Lori Wilson. She means quite a bit to me, and I'm just honored to be a part of anything that recognizes her and highlights and remembers the beautiful work she did from an advocacy standpoint, and her love for community, and really making sure that community had access and advocacy, advocating around that. So I'm honored, and also for the wonderful speakers that we had tonight. It was such a pleasure to be in your presence, as well as the members of your fund, Thelma. It was just an awesome evening, and I just am honored to be in all of your presence. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And Happy New Year again, everyone. Thank you, Sergio, for the technical assistance. And I will see you next month. Good night, everyone.
Good
Thank
night.
you
Good
again,
night.
Andrea.
Thank you.
Congratulations,
Bye.
Thelma.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Horton.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye, Scott.